Hiya, and welcome back to Lyre, the game that teaches us that the best method to prove your innocence is to essentially turn into the gay furry of Eren Yeager and scream at the top of your lungs that the person who is judging your trial is the real murderer. Motherfucker's looking like Kato. Yeah. Anyways, let's just hop right in. I think my saves will work. I try to wiggle out and stop the guards, but as I do it, one of them brings their fist back and slams it in my face. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is where I need to be. Hiya. Chapter 12, Day 38. The tips of my shoes drag along the rough ground as I'm hauled through the corridor. Pain radiates from my nose and my head aches, a thumping pressure banging against the walls of my skull. Although, I imagine it's nothing compared to how Adrius feels, with the way I left him. We fucking mutilated that little bitch. Fucking mutilated that twink. We fucked him up. I open my eyes a little bit, but opening them too much causes my head to hurt even more. Two of the guards drag me by each arm as we make our way down the twisting halls of the castle. We reach the set of stairs that lead down to the first floor of cells, and they begin to lift me down the steps. Even with all this dead weight, I feel light being carried by their strength. We reach the bottom of the stairs, and they continue to pull me down the long tunnel. I look to my left as cell doors pass by, one after the other. Each doorway casts the light on my face that creates a searing pain rushing through my head. I close my eyes and let them carry me down the hall, the repetitive movement of their bodies pacing down the tunnel almost putting me to sleep. One good punch to the face is how much it takes to help me realize just how tired I really am. I can faintly hear the cell door swing open, and before I know it, I'm dragged around the corner and thrown against the wall with the bed. I sit there slumped over, the pain in my face becoming more numb with each passing minute. The guard who threw me onto the bed begins to take the shackles off of my wrists and throws them to the side when finished. After that, they take the shirt I'm wearing and bring it up and over my head, my arms sliding through the sleeves. Hiya. We got decked in the face. It's tossed to the side and I feel a cold wind on my upper body. He then grabs my forearm tightly and brings it up into the air, almost pulling me out of my seated position. The large rusty shackle gets clamped around my wrist and they let go of my arm as it hangs limply in the air above my head. They grab my other arm and do the same with it, the cuff tightly gripping my wrist. The only issue is, my arms are now crossed over each other. It's not too uncomfortable, but then again I spent most of the day in chains, so I'm used to it. The other guard takes the shackles that were previously on my wrists and binds them around my ankles. Kinky. They're a bit tight, but it doesn't hurt. Okay. Yeah, kinky. Very kinky. Before I have time to settle into things, a swift punch to the gut causes me to lurch forward. The pain works up through my stomach, and I feel the muscles in my gut begin to tighten. I retch onto the ground and groan in pain. Not much came out, given I haven't eaten in a while, but it still hurts. I hear the two guards walk out of the cell, one of them closing the door behind them. One of the turnkeys must be there too, because I hear the clanking sound of the door being locked. The guards walk away from the cell, airing their frustrations about what happened earlier. Adrius, that monster! He'd kill his own kin and then blame it on me. Put me through all of this. All this time he's been pining for the presence of his departed father, putting up an act for those around him. All this time, and he's the one to blame. The taste of vomit still lingers in my mouth, so I spit it out onto the floor. I lean back against the wall, the chains rattling above my head as my arms tug down. Everything is so peaceful now. Cold, but peaceful. Instead of drowning me, the silence now takes me in a comforting embrace. As shitty as everything is, at least now I'm alone again. Alone. I try to call out to Tigran, wondering if through it all they've returned to my side. Nothing escapes my mouth, but I know that doesn't matter. If they were there, they would know I needed them. I get no response, though. Just the feeling of eyes. Eyes watching me as I lay there against the wall. Soon my own eyes begin to feel heavy. As I begin to close them, my mind starts to race. Most of it is just visuals and recounts of what happened, but a few questions hammer at the back of my head. Where's Lyre? Is he safe? Ah, shit. One thing that I remember, they're gonna fucking kill him. They're, like, gonna murder him. They're gonna send him to the eternal nap. They're going to put him to eternal sleep. They're gonna execute him. Is he safe? Does he know where I am? What's going to happen to me? The screeching sound of the cell door to my left manages to wake me up from the deep sleep I was in. Before I can open my eyes, I go to move and remember I'm shackled to the wall as the chains begin to rattle. I loosen my limbs and raise my head up slowly. My eyes struggle to adjust to the light, but judging by the shadows on the floor, it's sometime around noon. I can't tell how many days have passed, but it feels like I've been asleep for a long time. The floor beneath my feet is terribly cold, but the rest of my body feels stable. However, a chill runs up my body as I hear the sound of hooves in the doorway. Light on his feet, Adrius walks halfway into the cell and stops, turning to stare at me. Hi, bitch! Fuck you, bitch! I'm gonna make a terrible joke. If you hurt Lyre, bitch, you're going to see your father and mother again. Bitch! Seeing his face ignites a fire inside of me as I struggle to end my chains. He doesn't say anything at first. He just stands there, arms crossed. There's a large bandit wrapped around his head, covering the part where his antlers should be. L, Adrius, L. Not only is the antler wound bandaged, but there's a part of it that's been placed on his nose, most likely to cover up the gash the chains gave him. It looks like he's had bandages for a while. Once he's satisfied with our staring contest, he nods over to the doorway and speaks. Leave those by the door. And get the iron. I hear the noise of someone walking away. I assume it's one of the turnkeys and yell out to them. Don't leave! I didn't do anything! It was him! I get no response from the turnkey, but Adrius throws me a muddled look. As the footsteps trail off, the cell becomes more and more silent. Cold wind blows through the bars of the window as Adrius just stands there, as still as a statue. What are you doing here? Once again, he doesn't say anything. He just begins to slowly pace around the cell, stopping every few seconds. Talk, damn it! What's your goal here? I'm done playing your stupid game! As I shout at him, he walks over to the window and lazily gazes out of it. The wind rushes through his fur and he closes his eyes. After a few moments, he opens them and looks down. He spots something and leans down to the pile of straw in the corner. From the pile, he pulls out the bottle of tablets Leaf gave me. He must have been peeking out from the clump I buried it under. Could I even get in trouble for that? Leaf. He whispers this under his breath. After reading the small label on the end of the bottle, he squats down and reaches into the pile again. His back is to me, so I can't really see his face, and he's so silent I'd assume I've lost my hearing. Holding up his hand, I see the small piece of mirror pinched between his finger and thumb. It's dirty and smudged, but still reflects light into my eye for a moment as he twists it around in his hand. Adrius. He turns his head and looks at me, his expression empty. His bronze eyes shine in the dim light from outside the window. What? The way he asks this sounds less like he's annoyed and more like genuine curiosity. I try to think of what I wanted to ask him, but I really just wanted to break the silence. Nothing. He stands up and opens the bottle, tapping it into the palm of his hand until a tablet comes out. Popping it into his mouth, he swallows, not even needing anything to drink to get it down as he slowly paces toward the East Hall. So, what's going to happen? Are you going to kill me too? Won't even give the headsman the satisfaction of doing his job? He stops in his tracks and tilts his head in my direction, staring at me out of the corner of his eyes. Shut up! He yells this, and before I even know what's happening, he hurls the shard of mirror into the wall next to me, pieces of it scattering all over the ground. God, do you ever shut up? You fucking worm! That display you and that disgrace of a knight put on the other day has the entire castle in an uproar. I expected nothing less from the scum as yourself, but you truly ruined Lyre. He was a good and loyal dog, and now you've gone and undone it all. He was a prodigy. He had potential, but now he's what? All I remember is that Lyre was gone the moment things broke out in the throne room. What could he have possibly done in the time since then? Oh, that's right. You don't know. A sick feeling enters my stomach as it overtakes the pain that was there before. Of course you haven't heard. You've been out for a couple days, haven't you? I suppose food isn't the only thing you're starving for. He leans against the wall behind him and looks down dejectedly. After your disruption at the end of the trial, we conducted a search on the entire castle looking for him. I'm sure you remember the way he fled the scene so swiftly. The horrible truth is, how can I put this? My heart sinks down into my stomach and an awful taste hits the back of my throat. He's missing. My entire body relaxes, my arms going limp as they dangle from the chains above. I see a smirk stretch across Adrius's face and an anger swells within my body. You're sick! His leer dissipates and he continues to explain. Yes, he's nowhere to be found. The guards looked all over the castle and he hasn't turned up. I can hear his voice waver a bit at the end of his statement, and I'm reminded of the fear in his voice when Lyre disappeared from the trial, the way he shouted over and over for the guards to find him. It was terrifying watching him freak out like that. Sorry to break it to you so bluntly, but he's left you. He leans in, his twisted smirk appearing once again. I let out a short laugh and Adrius leans back, somewhat stunned by the reaction. Is something funny? It's laughable, really. You have no respect for him whatsoever, yet you rely on him so much. What are you talking about? And you wonder why he's become so disobedient. If you're wondering, it has nothing to do with me. As much as you want to hate me, I'm very certain Lyle's loyalties changed due to you and the situation you caused. He squints his eyes at me, listening intently, but waiting for the moment to shut me up. I don't care, though. I'll take any chance I can get to insult him to his face at this point. But I have a feeling you're going to have an equally difficult time keeping Elizabeth by your side as you have with Lyre. Or maybe you won't. I don't really know her. All I know is that the first weeks of you being king, you've done an awful job. You've inspired no loyalty. Lyre has managed to break out of the chain you fastened so loosely around his neck. He's merely hiding from you and the situation you've put yourself in. Nothing more. Good! Let him hide. If it spares him the wrath you'd rain down upon him, you'd hear no complaints from me! He takes a step forward, glaring at me with a feeling I can't really pick up on. It's a mix of emotions, but they all feel conflicted. You're a fool to think he can just run away from all of this. The Heart's cavalry will hunt him down like the deserter he is. The Heart's cavalry? The Knights Without Borders? I see a twinkle in Adrius's eye as he leans close to me, whispering into my ear. If you think me to be so cruel, then you've clearly never heard of my uncle. Uncle? Who is he talking about? Before I can get a chance to contemplate what he meant by that, footsteps shamble their way closer to the door. Adrius looks to the doorway and glances back at me, a fire in his eyes. He walks to the entrance and addresses the person. Give it to me. Out of the corner of my eye, I see Adrius take a long object from the man. He then walks back into the cell, the figure following behind Adrius quietly. Ah, shit. They're a small old turnkey with a hood that shrouds their face from view. I can't really get a good read on what species they are, their dark paws being the only thing I can see, as they don't have a visible tail. The object in Adrius's hand draws my eyes, however. It's a long iron rod with the Ossian family crest on the end. A branding iron. A piece of family history, collecting dust. Adrius gently sets it down in the corner of the room, leaning it against the wall with his eyes fixed on mine, the eyes of a beast on the prowl. I'm positive you've seen Sirion around here before. He gestures to the turnkey, standing close to Adrian with his hands clasped. He was once a criminal like yourself, arrested back before my father even took the throne. Adrius looks down at the old man, the pitch of his voice changing. What was it you were imprisoned for again? The turnkey turns their head in Adrius's direction and stares at him, not saying a word. Oh, my apologies. Sirion here had his tongue removed with the hot knife ages ago. Sirion looks in my direction, and I can see a bit of his muzzle peek forward from beneath the hood as he opens his mouth. revealing a nasty set of teeth. What Adrius says is true enough. I can see no tongue, only the gums beneath where it would be. It's a gruesome sight, one I would have rather not seen. I can't exactly recall what crime warranted such a punishment, but all that is in the past now. After his sentence, he was appointed the dungeon's torturer, to which he happily accepted. Of course, under my father's reign, he was barely given any real work. A chill runs over my whole body, and the fear begins to take over. Does he seriously mean to torture me? I assumed my way out of this nightmare would be much quicker. I believe they were actually a doctor before being imprisoned, is that correct? Adrius looks down at him, and he nods his head. I'm sorry, what the cinnamon toast fuck? It's a stiff, inhuman movement. Their knowledge of the anatomy of different bodies is quite extensive. With how biologically diverse the people of this land are, I'd imagine that's a very impressive skill. Sirion is almost as proficient as Leaf, I would say. So you're going to torture me? He freezes, his hand falling to his side. I won't be torturing you. Honestly, were you even listening? Sirion has been out of work for a very long time, and I'm not about to take that from him. As Adrius says this, Sirion wheels in a cart with all sorts of tools. I only recognize some of the more basic instruments, and seeing them makes my throat tighten on the inside. I wonder what he'll do first. Adrius walks forward and rubs his hand on my cheek, bringing it down to my chin. Makes my blood boil. You have such handsome, rugged features with beautiful, pearly white teeth. He pulls his hand away, a nervous expression on his face. Much sharper than I assumed a human's teeth would be. Hopefully not sharp enough to cause Sirion trouble when he pulls them out. Adrius, who hurt you? God damn! Just, wow. Wow. Just, wow. Beads of sweat slowly drip down my face, and suddenly the teeth in my mouth are more apparent than ever. My body feels weak, and my arms are now shaking enough to cause the chains to rattle silently. I'm kidding. Unlike your teeth, my antler will grow back. He turns to Sirion and gestures to me. Sirion, try not to do anything too drastic. I know you're a bit rusty, so please take your time getting back into things. You're seriously going to do this? After everything you've done, you're still okay with this? After all that's happened because of you! He now stands by the exit, his hand resting on one of the door's bars. 3 days, and then we hunt. Hunt? He strides through the door, and Sirion closes it behind him with a loud thud. You coward! I shout these words in his direction, and I can hear them travel up the hall like rushing water. If he causes any trouble, gag him. I grew tired of his filthy lies, and I assume you will too. He yells this behind him as I hear the sound of his hooves hitting the ground. The noise getting further away with each second. I look away from the door and turn to Sirion, his shadowy figure standing in the corner next to his cart. Please, please, you have to understand! He's the one who started all of this! He shows no sign of listening to me as he rummages through the cart. It looks as if he's organizing things. After a few moments, he draws closer, his footsteps clumsy as he limps with each step. I can hear strained breaths from beneath the hood as he gets closer. Once he's right in front of me, he places both of his paws on my collarbone. I turn my head away, not sure what he's about to do, but knowing that it's something I won't like. His paws slowly guide up from the front of my torso to my shoulders and then my arms. The claws on the end of his fingers drag along the skin of my arms, sending a horrible shiver up my spine. He traces one of the scars on my arm, which causes the appendage to shake even more. Without any warning, he then grabs my wrists, the shackles around them having already imprinted on the skin at the base of my hands. With a surprising amount of strength, he twists my arm along with the rest of my body, forcing me to face the wall behind me. I'm now standing on my knees, arms held up with my back to him. I hear him step back toward the cart and clumsily grab something off of it, causing a loud clanking noise. Rotating my hands, I try to see if there's any way of getting out of these cuffs. My heart is beating faster than it ever has, and I feel completely helpless. My shirt was taken off days ago, and although the cold air doesn't feel as harsh anymore, I still feel exposed. All I can do is prepare for what's to come. Nothing happens at first. All I can hear is rustling behind me from the torturer as they quietly go about their business. Then I hear it. What the actual fuck? Like, ugh. Like, goddamn. I'm gonna take a minute. I'm gonna take a minute. Because it just let me hear that shit again. I don't know if you can hear it. Let me turn up the audio and then I'll play it again. But that was the sound of a fucking whip. That's a whip. The noise shoots into my ear with a loud bang, echoing throughout the cell and up the tunnel. It happens again, cracking through the air like an explosive. He has a whip. No, please! I get no hint of response, instead just the swishing noise of the whip as it whirls around the cell, dragging along the floor. Please! I feel tears begin to form at the corners of my eyes. Closing them, I silently cry to myself, waiting in fear for what's to come. The idea of Lyre breaking into the cell and rescuing me from this appears in my mind. I imagine his white cape rushing past like a blind light as he tackles Sirion. The noise of the whip slowly starts to fade out. Swinging slowly starts to fade out. The dreams of Lyre heroically rescuing me are weak, however. In the darkness of my closed eyes, I can only see one thing for certain. A single candle burning in the center of my vision. It's a strange vision, not at all like those I would see with the mind's eye. It's familiar, like something I've experienced before. The candle flickers in the darkness, the wax on it slowly dripping down the sides. Your name. I hear a voice behind me. It's stern and authoritative, asking me for my name. Richter. I reply, but my answer doesn't come out of my own mouth. It sounds devoid of any emotion. A horrific pain strikes across my back, causing me to arch forward. The pain was sharp and quick, not staying for more than a second, but coming back all at once with a horrible stinging ache. Ah! Stop! Please! Two more lashes from the whip drag across my back, the pain almost unbearable. I let out another howl of agony, but there isn't much time to recover as another round begins. Hiya. The constant barrage of pain becomes more and more overwhelming as it goes on. Each strike across my back is more painful than the last. Not only that, but the old torturer cracks the whip in the air so often that I can never truly know when he's going to land a strike. With each awful crack of the whip, I flinch at the sound of it, expecting a shocking blow to the tender flesh on my back. It slowly transitions from physical to mental torture. Through it all, visions of Adrius's face invade my mind. His smug smile, those eyes that burn like the sun. The one thing that angers me the most about all of this is that he still refused to admit to his crime. Even in private, he refuses to give in. He's heard me accuse him on multiple occasions. Does he truly think I'm just guessing when I make such claims? It feels like hours before Sirion stops. My body is exhausted, my senses numb. Aside from the wheezes coming from the scum behind me, all I can hear is warm blood dripping onto the slab I'm kneeling on. The cold air glides over my skin, stinging the fresh wounds left behind by the hours of pain I've just experienced. Just then, something wet and cold is draped over my back like a towel. It causes a raw pain to spread over the entire area, and it doesn't stop. My body begins to shiver uncontrollably, the chains from my shackles now rattling much louder than before. I can hear Sirion leave the cell as I fall into a state of complete exhaustion. Wake up! My upper body jolts against the wall and my eyes open, the blinding light taking a moment to adjust to. I'm still kneeling on the slab of stone, the side of my face pressed into the wall. From this position, I can see Adrius standing by the door. He has the branding iron in his hands and is clanking the handle against the bars of the cell door. Sirion stands near him, hunched over a small cart. I groan and position my head so I'm looking down at my knees. The pain in my back is still there, as if no time had passed. The cold, wet towel seems to have fallen off overnight, and the crisp air rushes over the new wounds. I can't see the cuts, but somehow, it's like I can feel exactly where they are just from the pain. I see Sirion really punished you. I hear Adrius walk around behind me, swinging the branding iron around like a cane. I think you'll be having some new scars soon. He traces his finger along one of the scars on my arm, the hard surface of his fingertips pressing into the skin. Feeling him touch me, even with just a single finger, fills me with a new kind of anger. I'm gonna bite your fucking finger off, Adrius! Especially after what I've just been through. I want to shout at him, but before I can try to work up the courage, he stops touching my arm and I feel two paws grab my wrists and body, spinning me around to face Adrius. Sirion lets go and Adrius crosses his arms, gesturing to me. Speaking of these, how did you get them? These are an awful lot of scars for someone in your profession. I'd wager it's more than what Lyre has, or any of my guards for that matter, although it's hard to tell with all the fur. You humans seem to bruise easily, however. I don't answer him, my mouth refusing to move. It's mostly out of anger, in a non-verbal way, but no matter how hard I try, the answer won't come to me. Adrius takes the long metallic rod and swings it into my leg, and I can feel it collide with my bones through the thick flesh. It hurts like hell, and I let out a sharp yelp. Answer me! I can't remember! He throws back his arm to swing again. Okay, fine! I was a poor kid on the streets of the capital, okay? I got in a lot of fights! He lowers his arm, pacing over to the window and looking out it. A typical answer. You're lying. That makes two of us. Who are you? Why were you chosen for this? Why you of all people? I'm just me. Richter. No. You're Lord Richter, ambassador from the kingdom of Erin. He shouts this in a mocking tone as he paces about the cell. I can see Sirion out of the corner of my eye, cackling to himself. Of course, I only see him cackling. I can't exactly hear it. A man with a background which would allow him to keep as many secrets as he liked. And a title, a position bestowed upon him for reasons unknown, and one that he overplays quite often, along with your hardly hidden obsession with the life of my father and his kingdom. And yet you still pretend to know nothing. What are you talking about? He turns to Sirion, who's watching us from the corner. Sirion. I just realized I've been mispronouncing his name this entire time. Sieron. Sieron, start working on that concoction already. You aren't being paid to stand around. The small man hobbles over to his cart and starts to dig around the shelves on the side. I have no idea what Adrius means by this, but it can only mean something bad. Erin has kept many secrets from us, secrets that I'm very close to discovering. Through this entire fiasco, they refused to send word, and our letters have been ignored. That has nothing to do with me. Yet you know something that I don't. And if you ever want to see your precious knight again, you're going to tell me what it is. Sieron is now carelessly mixing an odd-looking paste in a bowl. The heart he's resting on clattering as it shakes from his movements. You won't let me see him again regardless of what I tell you. You're asking the wrong person the wrong questions. So kill me and be done with it. Your father and I can sulk over the situation you've thrown this kingdom into in the afterlife. We can share a good laugh as we watch you fumble your way through your reign. No, you will not sulk. You will not grovel or ask me for death. He leans the branding iron against the wall again, the old metal dimly shining in the light from the window. He walks closer and hisses to me in a hushed whisper. Were you not listening at all throughout that whole trial? I'm now thoroughly invested in this little game you've been trying to start. Because of you!
I thought it had ended once the trial was over and I gave your sentence. But that clearly wasn't the case. I now realize that this was only the beginning. The first round, if you will.
He bends down, looking into my eyes at eye level.
It's also given me time to think. I don't like you very much. Not at all, really. From the moment you walked into dinner that night, I merely saw you as an annoyance. But I've realized that you pose a great opposition to me. It brings me gratification.
He stands up straight, his cape falling down around his shoulder.
You will not let your pain break you. Your game isn't over yet, and I will not stand for this pathetic submission.
What exactly is your goal here? He gives me a soft smile. It's a smile that betrays who he really is. I see something change in his eyes, like he's a completely different person.
I've taken control of my fate and the fate of this kingdom. I've taken control of your fate as well. You may believe yourself to be in control all you like, but your life is in my hands. You'll find my grasp is very firm. In the end, I will choose what happens to you, no matter what.
Adrius backs up to the wall and leans against it, his legs crossed and his hand gently twisting the handle of the branding iron.
Sierron, are you finished?
There's been silence in that corner of the cell for about a minute now, and when I look over, I see Sierron cradling a vial in the palm of his hand. He nods and walks over to my left side, standing silently and looking to Adrius for orders.
This is your last chance to tell me everything you know.
Or else what? I say this, looking at the vial, knowing that it probably has something to do with it.
Sierron has just completed working on a decent amount of a very potent hallucinogen. I'm not sure if you've heard of it before, but it's called Weeping Dragon.
Hiya.
A Drizian's recipe. In small doses, it's not as harmful, but with the amount Sierron has prepared...
Sierron holds up the vial and rotates it in his paw, the contents sloshing around on the inside. It's a thick purple liquid with hints of green and black swirling about.
Unlike the medicine Leaf gave you to ease your pain, this won't be administered with as much care. This dose will leave you in total agony.
I gulp at the sight of it, and it feels like there's a rock in my throat. I can feel my heart pulsing and beating on my chest like a drum. I already told you I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just an ambassador. I was asked to do this. Commanded! I'm not a spy or whatever you think is going on.
Every ambassador is a spy, and treason is what draws the line. Is that your final answer?
Sierron grips the vial tightly, stepping closer to me. Please, I'm telling you everything I know.
Give it to him.
No! Please don't! I almost jump out of my seat, the chains above my head and around my feet rattling as I struggle. Adrius swiftly turns and heads to the door, his hand clasped around one of the bars on the door.
And make sure he swallows it all.
Please! I'm cut off as Sierron tightly holds my jaw in his grasp. I go to close my mouth, but his paw won't let me as I'm forced to keep it open. Struggling in my shackles, I try to do anything I can to keep that substance from entering my mouth. It's no use though, as it happens so fast. The thick liquid pours into my mouth, resting on my tongue and slowly trickling its way to the back of my throat. The taste is horrendous and extremely powerful, almost sweet but to the point where it's painful. I don't even know what's in it, as it doesn't taste like anything I've ever tried before. I try to gag or do anything to stop it from going down, but it's no use. Once it's well on its way throughout my system, Sierron lets go of my jaw and backs away. I start to cough as much as I can, but it's not working. I can already hear the sounds of the hallucinogen disagreeing with my insides. Either that or it's already working its way into my body, getting ready to poison my mind any second now. I've never had anything like this happen to me before, and as the fear begins to truly set in, I can feel my entire body break out into a cold sweat. I'm so busy being preoccupied with my situation that I don't even hear Sierron leaving the cell. The door shuts with a loud bang, and if I wasn't chained down, I feel like I would have jumped out of my seat. Before I can fret too much about my situation, my mind wanders to a question that's been on my mind since Adrius spoke of it. What did he mean by taking control of his fate and the fate of Lyre? Was that truly his motivation all along? It just doesn't make sense. Trying to think about it becomes harder, though. My head begins to feel as if it's splitting open, but it's a numb pain. Something that I can't quite feel the sharpness of, but the pressure is there. Everything goes blurry, and as I try to focus my eyes, the cell begins to warp and bend. It feels like everything is spinning. Almost like the mind's eye, but so much worse. My head still feels like there's an immense amount of pressure being put on it. There's more and more spinning. The walls seem to be bending into a tunnel, and I'm left chained to the wall and staring as the bricks fly by. The lights shining in from the window seems to dance round on the room, and everything looks extremely detailed, while also being smudged like a dirty reflection. Hang on, is it actually moving? I close my eyes so that I can block out the mess of colors and lights. The pain. Your name? Richter. Occupation? Ambassador. I want you to repeat after me while staring at the candle. Do you understand? I understand. Wall. Wall. Street. Street. Home. Home. Kingdom. Kingdom. Rise. Rise. Betrayal. Betrayal. Enemies. Enemies. Trust. Trust. Allies. Allies. Freedom. Freedom. We will continue again tomorrow. What is your name? Lord Richter. The fear. Oh shit, this is better than most dramas on Netflix.
So, where exactly did you come from, and how did someone like you achieve nobility?
Your Highness, I'm afraid that is not a very interesting story. I'm scared. Hang on, I'm gonna turn down the audio. There we go! Something about him has always struck me as different. He doesn't seem to be someone fixated on the past. The past is dangerous. We can handle it. For the past month, you've been becoming your own person more and more. You have finally removed your mask. Freedom. Oh, that's creepy. Hold up. Hold up. Did I just accidentally skip that? I'm gonna watch that. Atmac or Atmac, Sky Peanut, if you're watching this, is this an RPG game? And if it's an RPG game, what role am I playing? The fucking victim? As I slowly recover, the pain all over my body starts to become more apparent. From the tips of my toes to the very core of my skull, everything is in deep, constant agony. Letting out a deep groan, I open my eyes to look around the cell. I think a day has passed, which I wouldn't be too upset about if it wasn't for the fact that only means there's more suffering to come. I know it's not an RPG. Checking something real quick. But just, damn! Like, this is... wow. How are you all holding up? After that absolute shit show that was whatever the hell Adrius is doing, how are you all holding up? Like, I'm being serious here. How are you holding up? I'm gonna set up a poll. I'm gonna set up a poll. And I want you to answer, and I want you to answer honestly. Whatever hell Adrius is going to is too good for him. And go ahead and vote. Like, I'm genuinely curious how most of you are holding up. Like, this is genuinely fucked up. I can barely remember anything of what happened after I ingested that awful substance. It's all completely lost to me except for one thing. Hearing Lyle's soft voice is the last thing I remember. I don't remember what he said, but even his voice felt distant, like a memory. The only thing I truly remember is the pain and the fear. The tips of my fingers are numb and I still feel sleepy. It's like I didn't sleep at all. I also feel a bit confused, and I have a feeling that I'll recall none of the hours I'm from now. Most of you are holding up pretty good. Let me view all of that. No one voted for what the cinnamon toast fuck. Like, yeah, I can kind of see why. I also feel a bit confused, and I have a feeling that I'll recall none of this hours from now. After moving around a bit more, I realize just how sweaty I am. Despite the cold air from outside flowing into the cell, I look like I just finished running for hours in hot weather. I've also lost all sense of taste. I'm hoping that I get that back, but I don't think it matters. The feeling of starvation grows stronger with each passing day. I can feel my stomach eating itself. The last time I ate was days ago. I lower my head so that I'm staring down at my lap and tears begin to well in my eyes. Why is Adrius keeping me alive? What kind of sick things has he planned? The tears are heavy as they fall from my eyes, leaving wet spots on my dirty trousers. My situation is hopeless, and I've accepted a long time ago that things are going to end horribly, but I just want to see Lyre again. Through it all, he stood by my side. I want to hold him in my arms and feel safe. Safe. It's hard to remember what that feels like. Hearing his voice. Hearing him say my name. That's all I want. A couple hours pass as I watch the lights slowly move across the floor of the cell. I've managed to find a decently relaxing position to sit in. My arms feel so weak, and as I'm about to drift off to sleep, I hear footsteps drawing closer from up the hall. These specific footsteps are ones I'm all too familiar with. The cell door opens and Adrius slowly walks in. He has a face of confusion, looking me up and down. You look like a mess, but I expected things to be worse. I avoid looking into his eyes, refusing to say anything. Nothing. That's okay. I trust you had a good sleep. Damn you. Just anger. Damn you. Don't worry, I don't get much sleep either. I haven't had a good amount of sleep in a long time. That's okay, though. Exciting things happen when I'm awake. He leans against the wall on the other side of the cell, his arms crossed over his chest.
Today's the big day. Today's the big day. Although before we can start, there's one last thing that needs to be done. Sieron is down the hall preparing for it right now. You're not going to kill me, are you? He squints his eyes at me, those devilish eyes that I see anytime I close my own. It would send a message. I sit up, leaning forward as much as I can. Like the ones you've already sent to Aaron? The ones I recall you mentioned not getting a reply to? No, you're smarter than that. As much as I hate to admit it, I know as much. You don't know anything. You're afraid. He bites his lip, but all I can see is bitterness in his eyes. You're afraid every time you walk down these halls, Lyre will jump from the shadows and finally give you what you deserve. You said it yourself. He's hiding somewhere in this castle and it scares you. You're afraid of what's to come if you kill me. Like I said, you know nothing. You realize that you're not as important to Aaron as you think you are, right? A pawn at best. The idea that you think an all-out war can be started over your death is amusing. It's the death of the king you murdered that will plunge this land into fire. The people know this. From the shores of Frostford to the woods of Pine Rock, they accept this as fact. Because they want to. He steps forward, his hands behind his back, looking out the window with a thoughtful expression. Rest assured, they'll have replaced you before your body is cold in the ground. If we even give you that courtesy. Why do you hate me so much? Do I intimidate you? Is that it? He lets out a quick chuckle, almost surprised at the suggestion. I said it in jest, but I believe there might be some truth to it. At first, my attitude towards you and the Drizzian Lord wasn't personal at all. You simply forced my hand. Where is Kadaj? I can see the annoyance come over his body as his shoulders slouch and he rolls his eyes. I sent him to Driz to personally offer a proposal to King Aaron. It is the only proposal I offer and their only chance at keeping their ambassador in the fold if they accept. He meets my eyes again and shakes his head in a condescending manner. Although, either outcome isn't an issue for me. Of course you would see it that way. First me, and now Kadaj. Your assembly of advisors grows smaller and smaller with each passing day. You don't care where we go as long as we're gone! He tuts after the cell grows quiet, my last bout of shouts echoing up the hall. Don't worry, wherever you end up, I'm sure Lyle will be there to join you. Once we find him. After he says this, I can hear a sound from at the very end of the tunnel like a door slamming shut. Adries hears it too because I see him look at the door. I can see a satisfied grin stretch across his muzzle, and I know something horrible is coming. Sounds like Sieron is making his way back. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. I'm sure you know it's coming. Try to think of what he could possibly be talking about, and it dawns on me. I look across the room and notice that the branding iron is gone. Adrius sees me make the realization and his smirk grows wider. You're going to pay for all of this. He loses his smile and is replaced with his usual unimpressed frown. I'm going to kill you for everything you've done! I swear! He continues to just stare, almost like he's frozen in place, and after a few seconds pass, he finally breaks the silence. I'm waiting. I start to clench my teeth out of anger, wanting to yell and scream at him, but he continues. Besides, you only assume these things. You have no way of actually proving it. It's a baseless accusation, nothing more. You wore a leather cloak. His mouth is slightly ajar as he freezes in place, but he quickly replies. Lots of killers do. Hang on. Hold on. We're gonna do this entire update tonight. We're doing this entire update tonight. Lots of killers do. I'm sure you looked wonderful in it. He walks across the cell to the door, getting ready to open it for Sieron when he arrives. I know he's just trying to look like he's ignoring me. Try to think of something else to throw his way. When he killed him, he didn't have his antlers. Smart, it would be a dead giveaway if he was seen with them. I assume the antlers you had grown were actually temporary prosthetics. You made a wonderful point of showing them off to me earlier in the day, thinking I wouldn't notice. I bet that old leaf gave you... Bet that oil leaf gave you had gone completely untouched until now. I didn't notice it at first, but if it wasn't for Tigran's gift, I doubt I would have ever figured it out. I think I finally convinced him that I know. When I look at him, it's not apparent. He's not looking at me, but I can see the confusion on his face. Interesting thought. You know more about deer than I expected. I fail to see your point, though.
I can hear the slow, hobbling footsteps getting closer. Sounds like Sierra is just a few cells away. When I start to lose hope, it's then that an idea dawns on me. There's one thing that nobody in the trial was able to guess. Something nobody thought about except for me, because they all assumed I was the killer. How he escaped. I close my eyes and concentrate as hard as I can. Please, Tybran, if you're still there, grant me the strength needed for this one last time. It worked! Judging by the fact that I'm standing and not on the floor, I assume I'm seeing this from Adrius' eyes. They're blurry and welled with tears, which makes it hard to see. His heart is beating almost as fast as mine was earlier. Adrius turns away from Raynar's body, and as I scan the room, I see it. A small panel has been pushed open on the framing of the fireplace. Behind where the panel should be, I can see a small crevice. Not too big, but big enough for someone to squeeze through. It's a tunnel behind the walls. The walls inside are extremely dusty and old. It looks as if nobody's used it for ages. Adrius walks towards it, his legs weak. This is it. Fireplace. I utter this in a low breath, but I know he hears it because I can see him flinch, his eyes darting in my direction.
How did you...
He cuts himself off after realizing what he was just about to say. It's too late, though. He's figured out that I know, and he's given himself away with just 3 words. His face contorts into a completely different expression, one I haven't seen on him since the trial. I almost don't notice it, but those amber eyes begin to change as well. There he is. The king is no more, only the killer stands before me now. I can almost see the pain rush into his eyes, like it's hard for him to accept it. He goes to speak again, and his voice is rough and sinister.
I killed him. You seem to already know, but I'll give you the satisfaction of hearing it from me.
He slowly walks toward me, his hooves dancing onto each brick on the floor as he slowly paces across the hall.
When he died, I could finally see it. My true destiny! No longer was there conflict, no longer did I fight for control. Both eyes became one, and I realized what I wanted. What I truly wanted all along was right there. Just within my grasp. All I had to do was reach out and take it. If I didn't claim my destiny in that very moment, all would be lost forever.
He stands in front of me. Even with the short height, he looks down on me, the window casting a glow on the side of his face.
You can't win without making a few sacrifices.
The noise in the hall gets louder with each step, but Adrius doesn't show any sign of trying to hide anything.
I am the storm that will sweep over this land, cleansing it of all that threatens true peace.
He leans in, whispering into my ear, his voice like a snake's hiss.
I'll kill you and anyone who stands in the way of my dream. I can assure you, Lyle's severed head will decorate the western battlements before winter's end. My only regret is that you won't get to see it.
Right when he leans back, I take my last chance to spite him and spit in his face. It lands directly on his cheek, just beneath his eye. He's shocked only for a moment before bringing the backside of his hand down upon my face. It stings like hell, and I'm surprised at how hard he hits. Of course, after everything that's happened, I really shouldn't be too shocked. He wipes the spit from his face with the back of his glove. But as he does this, something catches his eye and he leans in closer.
Your eyes. They're brown.
While I'm recovering from the heavy blow to my face, he runs over to the cart Sierra used and he grabs a long rag off of it. He rushes back over to me and wrenches my jaw open, shoving most of it into my mouth and down the back of my throat. He's surprisingly strong and I try to yell, but it comes out muffled. I then go to bite down on his hand, but the cloth is already bunched up in my mouth. He then ties the rest of the long rag around the back of my head, finally gagging me. I struggle to say anything or push the cloth forward with my tongue, but it's no use. I can hear Sierra walk up to the door and he kicks it open with his foot. When he walks in, he's got a large metallic bowl carrying it by handles on either side. It's very wide, and resting inside of it is a pile of red-hot coals and the branding iron. It's already glowing a bright red color at the end, and the sight causes me to uncontrollably struggle in my chains.
Very good, Sierra. You can set that on the ground over there.
He says this, pointing to a spot on the floor where there's no straw. Sierra sets it down with a loud thud.
Turn him around.
I yank the chains as hard as I can, hoping to break free from the wall. Anything to stop what's going to happen. It's hopeless, though, and Sierra grabs my wrists and body, forcing me into a position so that I'm kneeling on the bench, face pressed against the bricks. Screaming into my gag is pointless, but I can't help yelling in fear as the seconds pass.
You're mine now. Do you understand? It's like I said earlier. Your life is in my hands.
I hear Sierron reach over and pick up the brand. The sound of the coals crumbling around it as it's lifted from the basin causes fear to course through my veins. He starts to limp towards me, but Adrius stops him.
No. I'll do it.
Adrius yanks the rod away from Sierron and gets behind me. Seconds turn into minutes, minutes turn into hours. After what feels like forever, it finally happens. First, I feel the pain, searing and sharp. I can almost...
To foreseek the future for himself? What a fucking psychopath.
Searing and sharp, I can almost feel the shape of the metallic antlers on my skin. It presses into my back, pushing deeper and deeper with each second is applied. Then I hear it. A sizzling noise enters my ears, which gets louder the more it goes on. I can almost hear the skin ripple as it burns away, the brand pressing harder into the flesh beneath the surface. Finally, I smell it. Something I've never smelled before, but I've heard how awful it can be. The horrific smell of burning flesh overwhelms my senses. In fact, the effect this terrible act has on my senses is so great, it completely drowns out the sounds of my muffled shouts of pain. At least from my perspective. I know in my bones that Adrius is taking it all in as much as he can. After what feels like minutes, but was mostly like... Oh shit, thank you for the follow. Sorry, had to sneeze. After what feels like minutes, but was most likely a few seconds, Adrius lifts the brand away from the center of my back. At first there's relief, but it quickly turns into a raw pain as the cold air rushes over the wound.
See, that wasn't so bad. I even made sure it was centered.
Sierron gets behind me and positions me so that I'm now facing Adrius. Tried as hard as I can to not lean my back against the wall.
Go ahead and get the guards. We need to get him outside on the walls before sundown.
Outside? Is he finally going to have me executed? It's an easy assumption, but why the walls? Sierron leaves through the door and slowly limps up the tunnel, a wheezing chuckle exiting his lips. Adrius turns back to me, but instead of looking smug or frustrated, all I can see is an inattentive expression. It's a betrayal of what I've experienced in the past several days, and it sends a chill up my back. It looks like the face of someone who just woke up after a long night's rest. Where? I can hear the guard's footsteps coming up the hall at a much faster pace than Sierron. Adrius hears them too and goes to the door, opening it and walking through.
Get him ready and bring him to the wall. Someone tell the executioner to saddle his horse.
The guards enter the cell, one of them standing by the door while the other walks up to me. I recognize them as being the guards from before. They reach down and undo the shackles on my feet. After taking those off, a wave of relief washes over my ankles. I had noticed just how much the clasps had been resting on them. Reaching up, the guards grasp the wrists on each of my arms one at a time and removes the cuffs. Okay, so once the ad starts, I'm actually, going to stop for a little bit, so that way, everyone who has to watch an ad can not watch the ad. Removes the cuffs. I let my wrists fall into my lap. The feeling of being able to lower my arms is like heaven. Examining the skin, there's deep red marks on each wrist where they cut into the outer layer of flesh. The other guard throws me the shirt I was given before the trial and it lands in my lap. It's cold and damp, but after watching it lay on the floor for the... I'm gonna stop for a second. Checking the viewers. Alright. It's cold and damp, but after watching it lay on the floor for the past several seconds, it's to be expected. Put that on. I do as they say, lifting... Ah, shit. Hell yeah. I do as they say, lifting my arms to slide the shirt over my head. As my shoulder blades bend, I can feel the skin on my back stretch. A round of applause for vocalist. Round of applause for vocalist for gifting for giving 4 gift stubs. Hell yeah! The fresh branding wound still stings along with the lacerations from being whipped. As I slide the shirt over my head and down my torso, the cold cloth torments the wound at first, but the pain slowly goes away. Hiya, welcome back. Once the shirt is on, I attempt to stand up from my seated position. My legs wobble at first, but they're still pretty strong. The other guard has already left through the door and started walking up the tunnel. The guard by my side grabs the chains on my shackles and tugs me in the direction of the door. Walking hurts, but it doesn't feel like the pain will last. I can't afford to be slow either because the guard leading me isn't taking his time. We walk at a fast pace up the tunnel, approaching the stairs quickly. As we make our way up the hall, my mind keeps going back to something odd. Adrius is hiding something. Not the identity of the true killer, but something else entirely. The way he acted back there was stranger than what I'd expect. The light from one of the windows in a cell that we pass blinds me for a moment as the setting sun shines through. I imagine Lyre leaping out from one of these empty cells and cutting down the guard where he stands. What would happen after that, though? We'd never make it outside of the castle. It's a stupid thought, but one that I want to cling to. We reach the stairs and the guard practically pulls me up them. My thighs are starting to ache, but I push past it. At this point, I just want to reach our destination and figure out what's going on. I have many questions just from hearing Adrius talk about what's going to happen. Why are they taking me to a wall? Why does the executioner need his horse? There's also the hunt that Adrius mentioned. No, wait. Have they already found Lyre? Do they intend to hunt him down and make me watch? No, they can't do that! I won't watch! They're going to have to force my eyes open! I just have to hope that if they did find Lyre, Adrius would have rubbed it in my face by now. At least, that's what I think he would have done. None of this makes sense. It's like a twisted dream. The guard leads me down the corridor, and we make our way to the western halls of the castle. There's crates and barrels lining the walls and plenty of storage closets. There are a lot of bows as well. Long bows, short bows, even a few crossbows. I see rooms where the walls are lined with weapons of all kinds. Spears and swords rest on racks and shields leans against the walls. We even pass a few guards on the way and they look at me with disgust. I try to avoid their eye contact as much as possible while still looking at my surroundings. However, there isn't much else and soon we reach the end of the curved hall. Light shines in through the thin windows and I can tell we're close to the outer walls of the castle. A guard opens the door and I'm tugged outside. Once my eyes adjust to the bright light, I look around. We stand atop the walls of the outer bailey of the castle. Looking over the edge, I can see that we're not actually too high up, which is a good thing because I've never been a fan of high places. The sky is filled with warmth as large pink and orange clouds consume the sky above the western mountains. Sunlight bursts through an opening in the center of the gathering of clouds, casting a bright glow over everything beneath it. Snow covers parts of the grassy fields below, and patches of purple flowers line the area around the walls. The guard behind me pushes me forward and I begin to make my way down the long, narrow walkway. There are soldiers standing in formation at the edge of the wall, their capes blowing in the cold wind. They don't look at me, but instead over the walls, or chat among themselves. Hiya. It's certainly better than having everyone's eyes on me. I look ahead of them, and at the very end of the wall, just before the stairs leading above the western portcullis, I see Adrius and Elizabeth. The rest of the northern nobility are seated in chairs behind them. They talk among themselves, but I don't see Lord Galen or Braden. It's only the ones who decided I was guilty. As I get closer, the guard leading me stops and pulls me back, stopping me from going any further. There's no barrier on this part of the wall, the floor beneath my feet leading directly off the edge. Even with his small stature and missing antler, Adrius stands tall and proud at the top of the wall. His cape blows in the wind behind him, the golden light from the sun making his fur glow with a bright warm color. Looking at him, you wouldn't think he just had someone tortured for days on end, along with participating in the act. When I look at Liz, she's the exact opposite of Adrius. Aside from her perfect posture, with her head held high, I can tell she's tired. After everything that's happened, I don't blame her. Her eyes are sad and most of the color in her face is gone. Her long auburn hair whips about as the wind picks up, the light making it shine a ruby color. I want to yell out to her and scream the truth. The gag in my mouth makes that impossible, but I know it wouldn't matter even if I tried. I'll just put her in more trouble and place a target on her back. A vision of her standing in the same place I am, getting ready to die, makes my insides roll in pain. That's not what I want at all. I wish I could tell her to get out of here and run away from it all. Adrius begins to walk down the stairs, throwing his cape behind his shoulder. He waves his hand and the guard holding my chains positions me so that I'm facing west, standing near the edge of the wall. Do they mean to kill me by pushing me off? A fall from this height wouldn't kill me, let alone harm me in any way. My legs might buckle once I hit the ground if I don't roll, but other than that, I've jumped from heights like this before and have been fine. However, my muscles aren't as strong currently. Adrius reaches the bottom of the stairs and gestures to the hills and mountains beyond. Lord Richter, you are found guilty of the murder of the king along with many other crimes. For this, you have been sentenced to die. He turns back to me, a soft smile on his face. However, the laws do not decide how my father's killer dies. He walks up to me and rests his hand on my shoulder, standing by my side and gesturing to the hills. You don't deserve a beheading. No, instead, I'm going to give you a chance. He snaps his fingers, pointing at me and the guard to my right and begins to remove the gag from my mouth. Once it's gone, I cough and relish in the feeling of relief. My throat feels dry and I can still taste the cloth in my mouth. Getting my sense of taste back has never been so awful. We're going to have a hunt. He takes a key from the guard and begins to unlock the shackles on my arms. Once they fall to the floor, I caress my wrists, feeling the indents that the cuffs left. I so badly want to punch Adrius and knock off his other antler, but my body refuses to move. It could be fear or restraint that's holding me back, but deep down I want to kill him with my bare hands right now. I just don't know if I could. I've never murdered anyone before. In this hunt, you're going to be the quarry. The quarry? Of course. It all makes sense now. He wants me to run for my life. He wants to enjoy the fact that I think I have a chance. It's all very simple. Once you're on the ground, you're going to run. Run as fast as you can across the hills towards the mountains. You'll get a decent head start, too. Just kill him already! The Bear Lord shouts this in a jesting manner, but nobody laughs. Adrius just nods in his direction with an annoyed expression. Silence! He pats me on the back lightly, and I wince in pain. If my headsman manages to catch you, he will kill you. This is your only chance. My only chance. Is it really my only chance? Do I even have a chance at all? He's going to kill me anyway, there's no doubt about it. No. I'm not sure about any of this, but when I look to the horizon, I suddenly get a burst of energy. It's nothing physical, but instead I feel a spout of determination rush throughout my body. Tigrin? I look around, half expecting to see them standing off in the distance. They're not, though. Their voice sounded so far away, too, like they've become weaker. If you have any last words, I would speak them now if I were you. Nobody will be able to hear you from down there. I looked down, the flowers blowing in the wind, sending petals scattering all over the snow. The sun shines on my face, allowing me to feel a warmth I never could in the cells of the castle. Tigrin really did it. I don't know how they did, but like they said, I have to have faith. This really is my last chance. Turning to look at Adrius, our eyes meet and I shoot him a poisonous glare. My last words. Standing up straight, I face forward and clear my throat before speaking. I've said enough. The wind dies down and for a moment it feels as if everything stands completely still. Then, Adrius' soft voice breaks the silence. Very well. Guard, when you're ready. Before he can even finish, I step forward and leap off of the very edge of the wall. I hear a few people gasp, but it's drowned out by the sound of wind rushing past my ears as I plummet. I hit the ground with a heavy thud and my knees buckle as I roll forward. Thankfully, I landed in a small patch of snow, but it didn't do the best job at breaking my fall. Without hesitating for even a second, I get up and break into a sprint. The snow and grass beneath my feet is freezing cold, making my feet instantly go numb. I push through it and keep running, not looking back. I hear Adrius yell something to me from the wall, but I can't make it out. I rush through the patch of flowers, their petals brushing against my legs as I wade through them like water. It feels like I'm already halfway across the first hill, but I don't look back to check. I just keep running. Adrius looks out over the wall, watching as Richter runs just over the first small hill. He rests his hands on the barricade, almost leaning over it as he watches with keen eyes. He didn't think something like this would be so exciting. Knowing that there isn't much time left before he gets out of range, Adrius motions for the archers. Archers, to your marks! The archers stand at the ready, their longbows in hand. Knock! They knock their arrows, their bows clanking about as they do so. Draw! Adrius watches as Richter comes into view, centered perfectly on the horizon. The archers draw their arrows, and before they can hold for too long, Adrius gives the command. Loose! Just as I make it past another patch of snow, something swiftly flies through the air behind me, landing a few feet to my left. It's an arrow. This is followed by more arrows landing in my general area, one of them landing a few feet in front of me, causing me to stagger to the right. That bastard! He's having his soldiers shoot arrows at me. I don't stick around to wait for another volley as I pick up my pace, trying to run even faster than I was before. My arms and legs are in so much pain and the bottoms of my feet are on fire. I can feel the cold air rushing into my lungs. It stings like hell, but I keep running. Adrius watches the arrows land near Richter, each one narrowly missing him. A rush of energy goes up his spine as it happens, and he turns to Liz, who is now by his side. She watches with a nervous expression, but he disregards this. Call for the headsman and tell him to begin riding out. I want to make sure he doesn't get too far away. Right away. Liz turns away to go and relay the information to a guard. Before Adrius can prepare his archers to let loose another volley, he notices that she's stopped and is now staring over the edge again. This time, however, she's looking at the area just beneath the wall with a quizzical expression. Elizabeth, I'm not sure if you know, but that was an order! I think that order's already been carried out. Confused, Adrius runs to the edge of the wall and looks over. Sure enough, the headsman is mounted on a horse, wearing their dark cloak, having rode through one of the wall's exits. His axe rests at his side, ready to strike down Richter with a single swing. He's riding awfully fast. Isn't that what you want? Her tone has a certain bitterness to it, but Adrius ignores her. Come now, Liz, this is the sport of kings. He doesn't deserve a quick death. Something isn't right. Adrius squints his eyes, watching the headsman ride across the field, snow and dirt kicking up beneath the hooves of their mount. From beneath her billowing cloak, Adrius notices the type of horse they're riding. It's a large breed, but that makes sense. The headsman is a very large man. They have a black cloak, dark as midnight, and their mane is stark white. As Adrius studies the horse, he sees a flash of crimson from underneath the cape. Adrius practically raises himself off of his hooves as he lifts himself above the barricade to shout over the walls. Archers! Fire on that rider, now! The archers begin to knock their arrows, and Liz rushes back to Adrius' side, throwing her hands in the air. Adrius, what are you doing? You don't see it? Take a closer look! He rushes to her side, grabbing her by the shoulder and pointing out over the horizon towards the headsman. As I sprint across the fields, I try to focus on the horizon and the sky beyond, not following the arrows that slow me down. The clouds begin to part and the sun once again shines through the opening. The sky is made up of the brightest colors I've ever seen. Pink, yellow, and orange. The clouds are soaking these colors as if it was paint. It gives me a feeling I don't think I've ever felt before. Despite how cruel this world is, with all of its faults, it's so beautiful. Just as I'm about to reach the top of another hill, I hear hoofbeats behind me. It's the headsman. The noise gets louder with each thud, and I feel my heart begin to beat faster than it ever has. Tigran, please. If you're there, I need your help right now. Sprinting faster than I ever have, I close my eyes as tears start to form. Like a child slowing down at the end of a race, I start to feel myself decline. No matter how hard I push myself, my body is starting to give out. To make matters even worse, I hear another barrage of arrows fly through the air behind me. My lungs feel like they're about to burst out of my chest as I continue to push myself up the hill. The bottoms of my feet are completely numb, and I'm starting to not even feel my legs. As I reach the top of the hill, I pray that one of the arrows hits, putting me out of my misery. But none of them do. Instead, they make their landing far behind where I am. Am I out of range? Did they simply miss? Richter! I come to a stop and turn around. It's Lyre! At first I think I'm seeing things, but there he is, riding across the field. He throws off a dark cloak and tosses an axe to his side. It lands in the grass behind him with a thud. the head stuck in the ground. The horse he rides is bigger than any horse I've ever ridden. They have a black cloak. They have a black coat with a snow-white hair as they gallop faster. Lyre leans off to the left, holding out his hand. His armor's different, too. It's almost reminiscent of the armor he wore in that vision from the past. I see arrows rise into the sky behind him, and looking at his face, I know he hears them. Keep running! I follow his orders and break back into a sprint, turning around to face him every few seconds. The arrows dive into the ground around us as he rides up by my side, holding out his paw. Take it quickly! Give me your hand! He slows his horse down slightly, allowing me to run alongside them as I reach for his paw. My fingers slip for a moment, but he reaches out further, and I manage to get a hold. I grab it tightly, and he swings me onto his horse, seating me in front of him. Hi-ya! He whips in the reins, and the horse bolts forward, speeding over the hill. Lyle hugs me tightly to his body as our ride becomes a bit rough. Oh, hiya. The errors become less frequent as we get closer to the edge of the woods at the base of the mountain. The sun sets behind the mountains, and for the first time in weeks, I feel safe. The last barrage of arrows lands just behind the two of them, and Adrius accepts that they're finally out of range. The sun sets over the mountains, casting a deep amber glow around his body from behind. He sees Liz look over at him, uncertainty on her face, but he doesn't pay her any mind. His eyes are only trained on the rider in the distance, their cape billowing in the wind as they get closer and closer to the horizon. Closing his fist, a cruel and conflicting smile stretches across his face as he clenches his teeth. The nobility seated above the portcullis are in an uproar behind him, Liz trying to calm them down. Some of them are clearly upset with the way this execution is playing out, but the others try to quiet them, saying this is a tradition. Adrius lets out a sigh of relief and turns to Liz.
Liz, the hunt isn't over yet. I have managed to bring the beast out of hiding, and we've granted them the prospect of hope. Now is when things get interesting.
Send out the Heart's cavalry! Ah! After this, I'm going to need to lie down. I need to lie down. Just, wow. That's... my back. No, there's going to be more Heroes Advent tomorrow. It's probably going to be Max, based on the way the poll's going. And stay safe, have a good night, and I will see you all tomorrow.